And good evening. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. LateNightParents.com is the way to find the show where we talk about technology, sports, product reviews, all the above. We usually talk about a little bit of sports or youth sports, but for the most part, big shout out to Richie V and Dr. Michelle, waiting to record the next show or live show in the studio back in Long Island. But for right now, we have a podcast for tonight's episode. I want to thank everyone that supports the show. I think last week, and I want to shout out Antenna Op. It's ANTOPUSA.com is the best way for the cord cutters to watch the show. So make sure you support ANTOPUSA.com. You know, it's all about cord cutting and watching over-the-air content. But in the queue tonight, we have none other than good friend Danny Thompson, credentialed writer for the Jaguars, the Magic, UCF, and the accolades go on and on and on. Danny, welcome.
Ted, it's always a pleasure. You know, I'm in the game of the podcasting where I'm just trying to catch up to you.
Please. I mean, I feel like you and I are like, I'm Denzel and you're Sidney Poitier. And I'm there chasing you all the time. So whenever I get an accolade, it's usually on that same evening you get an accolade, and hence the tradition continues. But
of course,
a lot to cover here. I want a couple honorable mentions. First thing before we even get into it, wanted to give a big shout out to the Viva Los Raiders Fantasy Football League. I happened to win this year. Unbelievable. And with the winnings tomorrow, I mean, and it's a work-related fantasy football, league. So tomorrow, since I'm not claiming this on my taxes, I am privately funded pizza party for the staff at work.
Well, Ted, just make sure you send a box down to the Centric office down in Popka. My lunchtime is about 2 o'clock Eastern, so I can give you the address off the air if you're looking for the address.
You got it. And I think the second thing I was going to talk about was, and like I said, big shout out to the fantasy football and everyone that plays fantasy football.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's great for camaraderie. It's great for the just overall competition, understanding the game, and it kind of transcends you just sitting there rooting for your one local team that you've loved all your life. I mean, yes, you can continue to do that, but along with that, you can root for the individual players.
Of course.
What were you about to say?
No, I'm saying, I just like you, I play in multiple fantasy football leagues. Shout out to the Co-Work and Co-New Orleans League I play in with all my coworkers. Ted, like yourself, I did win first place. Unlike you, I did not fund the office food party. What I did was I funded my daughter's Disney annual pass. So big shout out to those guys. Big shout out to those guys. I appreciate, the winnings, and my daughter will enjoy Disney next weekend,
Perfect. So let's get started. There's so many different things we can talk about before we get started, and this is primarily going to be football related, whether it's NFL, whether it's NCAA, divisional playoffs. But we have to talk about someone who's trailblazing, someone who's kind of rewriting that script a little bit. And that person is none other than, I guess, America's favorite dad, sports dad, LeVar Ball.
Yes.
It seems like he's he's kind of like, I mean, I don't even know if I feel okay saying this. He's kind of like our president. He's kind of rewritten the script on how things should be done. But I found myself, Danny, I'm not sure about you, the other day, I got a notification on my phone that the first game in Lithuania was taking place with both of LeVar Ball's sons playing, and I immediately went to Facebook to stream, to view the live stream.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, you gotta understand. So they go to a Division II team of Lithuania that's barely putting people in the seats. They basically sold out the game. LeVar has the ability to get this team out of one of the two leagues they're playing in to enroll them in the Big Baller Brand Challenge. Big shout-outs to LeVar Ball because there's nothing but BBB everywhere on the court. Turn a team that nobody's ever heard of and play against a team that is led by a former Gonzaga player, Kevin Panetos, who's a guard, and it's been watched by 1.5 million people on Facebook.
Wow.
A Division II Lithuania game is watched by more people than an ESPN2 college basketball game on a Tuesday night.
Right. But this is happening live at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Time.
And most of America's at work.
Most of America's at work. They're using their corporate internet connection, and they are just sitting there streaming, watching LeVar Ball and his brand continue to blow up. Now, I know there's been some stuff that's come out about the Better Business Bureau, and yeah, we're going to say haters going to hate. I'm just saying this guy is rewriting the script, and it's scary.
I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, yeah, the Better Business Bureau, the other BBB is after, BBB. So, yeah, that's the only thing going against LeVar Ball. If you think about what he's doing in Lithuania, it's a 5-game, I guess it's like a 5-game tournament or showcase. If that draws, let's just say, Ted, 800,000 people every time to Facebook, he is already talking about starting a league over here in the United States as a quote-unquote alternative version for these kids going to college. If he's successful over there with this Lithuania, it would not shock me if LeVar becomes successful with this league in the United States next year.
I will say this much. Not only that, but the fact you can sit there and rip the overpriced sneakers, but he's not partnering with Nike's, Adidas, or Under Armour. He's basically competing against them. If you think about it, that's his competition.
It's unheard of.
From an upstart. So there's a lot to be said about him. And, yeah, he's boisterous. Yes, he's all of the above. But the story's still being written on LeVar Ball, and truthfully, I really want everything to work out.
Yeah. I mean, you want the kids to be successful. That's the most important thing. It's not about LeVar Ball. It's about LiAngelo and LaMelo. LiAngelo had the situation at UCLA, and LaMelo was only 16 years old, pulled out of high school, and now is in the middle of this. So I hope for the kids' sake, that those kids come out to be successful. I mean, whether it be all-stars or first-team NBA guys, that's not really the most important thing. As long as these kids can learn the things they need to and also, be good basketball players at the same time and successful, that's all that matters at this point.
It's that and the fact that, like, my daughter, she's 16, and I'm sitting here saying, when he pulled his son out, he said, no, he's going to be homeschooled, and he's going to be this, and this is what we're going to do, and not questioning his parenting, not questioning any of that. You're going to parent your child however you see fit. I'm just saying this stuff is unconventional.
Yeah.
It's unconventional, and there's no script. So it's like any and everything that's happening, at first you kind of cringe a little bit. But it seems like, this stuff is working out. And I'm wondering if this is going to be the new blueprint for how people will do it. How these players will say, you know what, do I butt college? Do I go overseas? I mean, some of this stuff was happening already, but I'm thinking what he's doing with what's happening now, and if he can kickstart that league, you got something else on your hands.
Yep, and NCAA will have a problem.
Oh, totally. Hey, so as we segue to the next topic that you know near and dear, I'm just going to throw this question out to you. Where's the love for UCF football? They're undefeated, right? You guys had a parade down there in Central Florida, right?
I mean, we had a victory parade at Disney on Sunday. The governor of Florida, Rick Scott, declared UCF the national champions. You know, they had the block party on Monday night, which was just insane. The number of people that was going on at the same time as the national championship game. You know, the college football season is over, and congratulations to Alabama on winning, you know, the college football playoff. But when you look at the annual history books and when you look at records, there's only one school in the country that's going to look at the records undefeated, and that's the University of Central Florida. They finished here 13-0. They beat every team on their schedule. They beat top 25 teams. They beat teams that were in bowls. They went in and beat the SEC school that was the only team to beat Alabama all season. Our college football playoff champions is a team that didn't even play in their conference championship game and finished second in their own division. So you have a team that's not even a conference champion that's proclaimed as the college football playoffs national champion. And UCF, a team that been ducked and dodged by most of these schools because most of the big-time schools don't have a single benefit of playing UCF. And two, none of these schools want to play home and homes, which means they have to come down to Orlando. So Scott Frost magically rides off to the sunset as he heads to Nebraska, and Frost, I wish Coach Frost all the love and the good luck in Lincoln at alma mater. But, you know, his team never had a chance to play on that big stage. I mean, the Peach Bowl was a great game, and what you saw was on the offensive end was UCF's worst offensive game of the season, and they still won.
So tell me this, was Coach Frost still out there actively recruiting up until the day he left?
Well, actually, when we got the word at the conference championship game, I was covering the championship game, we got the word in the fourth quarter that Frost had accepted the job in Nebraska. So when he addressed his players, you know, the next day, the same day, and then he accepted the job, at that point in time, he was done recruiting with UCF. The team had gotten together, and they voted, and they wanted Scott to coach the bowl game. So Scott and his assistants were able to coach the bowl game while the university went out and found their brand new head coach. They had to make a coaching decision pretty quickly because it's right in the middle of recruiting season, and Josh Heupel was selected as the head coach. For those who know who Josh Heupel is, he was the head coach at Missouri, had led the highest scoring offense in the SEC last year. Missouri was scoring points on everybody last year. So he's going to bring that offense over to UCF, and during that process, Scott was recruiting for Nebraska and getting these kids ready for the Peach Bowl at the same time. On top of that, you know, a family-related note, he's a first-time father. His son was just his child was just born right before the USF game. Wow. So in November. So he's dealing with a newborn child, his first newborn child in California, recruiting in Nebraska and getting those kids ready, and coaching down here in Florida, getting these kids ready for the biggest game of their lives.
Pretty darn amazing, to tell you the most. I mean, this is Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. We're talking with Danny Thompson. Best ways to follow Danny on Twitter is NBADT29. He's a great follow, too. So, Danny, got to ask you about another winner, Nick Saban. I'm going to need you to step into his shoes. If you're Nick Saban, are you more concerned with breaking Bear Bryant's record or getting back into the NFL and rewriting history and then kind of erasing those two disappointing seasons you had with the Dolphins?
You go for legacy. At this point, you've won 6 national championships at Alabama. Just think about that. You've won 6 national championships. That's like Bill Belichick winning the number of Super Bowls he's won in New England. You go after Bear Bryant's record. It's much more attainable. and what you're doing, you have a better chance of breaking Bear Bryant's record than stopping what you're doing and transitioning yourself to a league that is based upon player egos and player salaries. College football is about getting kids to the NFL. What Saban is doing at Alabama is a factory. If he decides to come back, for example, which is we're pretty much sure he's coming back, he returns a team that's ready to win a national championship. His three best offensive players were all freshmen. The kid Tua is a true freshman. Now, not to mention you have Jalen Hurts, who was the starting quarterback that got you to the championship game and was still a starting quarterback through the first half. Saban has a factory. Go after Bear Bryant because it's much more easier to obtain. And number two, you're at that university. If you could upstage Bear Bryant at his own university, you become much more than a coaching legend. You become a coaching god, quote unquote. So I think if I'm Saban, I would, even if the NFL was not exactly the biggest success, oh well, not everybody is successful in the NFL. So I stay in college.
All right. As we move towards the NFL, next question for you is, and it's for a team that you cover, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just going to throw this question out here because, I see him getting ripped on social media. I just know this much. If you're a quarterback in the playoffs and you run for more yards that you actually pass for, I think there's a problem. But Blake Bortles mentioned to the media, my question to you is Blake Bortles playing himself? Was he actually trying to compare himself to LeBron James, or did you take it as Blake was saying, if you hate on LeBron James, then he doesn't have a chance?
You got to understand, Blake Bortles, when it comes to Jaguar fans, is about 90% get this guy out the door, and 10% is because they're all UCF alums and fans. Blake Bortles, and I love Blake. Blake's a great guy, great person to speak with, always very candid. And, he's still a kid. The problem is Blake Bortles has never developed into a quarterback that Jacksonville fans have expected. He was drafted, in the top 5 from UCF. He's a local boy. He's from the area. He led UCF to the Fiesta Bowl, which was UCF which put him on the national spotlight when they went out to Tempe and won that game. He had a very good first 2 seasons, and then he was actually a Pro Bowl alternate as a second year in the league. He started to regress. And as soon as he started regressing, the turnovers, the sacks, just the bad decision-making, and he forgot how to hit a receiver all at the same time. He regressed. It just so happens this was an option year for Bortles and the Jaguars. The quarterbacking situation in preseason was pretty simple. It was between him and Chad Henne. In layman's terms, it's like choosing between, already chewed gum and gum that's sitting under a desk at school. Which one are you going to chew? It's the worst of both worlds. Jaguar fans knew when this was coming. All that they were expecting him to do was to stay upright, don't get hurt, and they could get rid of him at the end of the season. A funny thing happened on the way. I think Blake Bortles and the entire Jaguar team started watching, the cult classic Major League. They all got it together, and Bortles just became amazing after week 3. But I'm not saying Bortles is the MVP of this league, but Bortles looked like a pretty good NFL quarterback, up until the final 2 weeks of the season. The playoff game, he was just awful, but he made enough plays to beat the the Buffalo Bills. Now they're going to Pittsburgh this weekend, a place where they blew out the Steelers 30-9 early this season. And so to bring this all together, to answer your question about LeBron James comparison, that Blake Bortles has caught enough, mess from the Jacksonville media and everything that surrounds the Jaguars for years, especially from the fan base. This is the same fan base that was yelling for Colin Kaepernick back in preseason.
Right.
They're begging Shad Khan to give Kaepernick a chance. And I'll be honest with you, if Jacksonville had started out 0-4 instead of the start they had, I think the Colin Kaepernick chance we've been hearing in Jacksonville all until they signed him. Shad Khan didn't expect this. Now, here's the real question for Jacksonville. If the Jaguars go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers this weekend, Blake Bortles has a $19 million option that the Jaguars have to pick up or decline for next season.
Wow.
If they pick him up, it's $19 million. If they don't, they are playing the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes or Eli Manning. And just remember, in the NFL right now, Kirk Cousins' franchise tag for the Washington Redskins is $34.8 million next season. The transition tag is at $28.8 million, or you are going to be looking at Matthew Stafford type of money. I'm not sure if Shad Khan and those guys want to look at the Kirk Cousins tree, the Alex Smith trade route tree, trading for Eli Manning to get him out of New York, or drafting a quarterback. But obviously, since you're in the playoffs, getting one of those elite quarterbacks, quote-unquote, in this draft, you're not going to get in the 20s. So Bortles is playing for his NFL career this weekend in Pittsburgh. But, yes, I get the warranted hate is only because of the fact that Bortles is not a like man in Jacksonville. So the comparison to LeBron James is him saying that, hey, listen, if you can hate LeBron James, and he's arguably the best player in the NBA right now, and arguably one of the top 5 to 10 players in the history of basketball, if you can hate him, then, hey, my job and hating me is pretty simple. So, I mean, I take it from that perspective.
I will give honorable mentions to Saxonville and
yes.
stud that helped me out all season long, Leonard Fournette. Had him on my fantasy team, and there was like maybe a 4-game stretch where he was a total lock. And I don't know, when you have certain tools around you, and you've got a stud as a running back, and you've got, a defense that's just spitting nails.
And tell you the crazy thing about Jacksonville's team, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the predictions later, is that Bortles is doing this with a banged-up offensive line. His best receiver, Allen Robinson, Pro Bowl caliber receiver Allen Robinson, was hurt before he even played a single regular season game.
Wow.
Marquise Lee's been hurt for a good stretch of the season. I'm sorry, Marquise Lee's been hurt. Allen Hurns is out. So now you're playing with a guy, D.D. Westbrook, who is coming off IR a couple weeks ago. You're playing with Keelan Cole. If you look at these guys, you would not even realize who half these receivers are. His tight end can't catch the football, and Bortles is, he doesn't have all his top-flight talent, but yet and still they're still winning. So Bortles must be doing something right. Ted, if he wins this game, Ted, then somehow they can get to the AFC Championship game and somehow may make the Super Bowl, the name Trent Dilfer will come into the comparison of Blake Bortles for the rest of his career.
Another honorable mention, this past season, regular season, I went to the Jets game, was invited, some, good folks there, and they happened to be playing the Jags. So I got to see the Jaguars up close. As we move along, I'm going to ask you, we're going to flip it out to the West Coast, because I got to say this much. We saw the Gruden press conference, and then we saw the reports that the Raiders are being investigated, and is that by the Fritz Pollard Alliance, saying that the Rooney Rule was kind of pushed to the side. Number one, the Oakland Raiders do have an African-American general manager in Reggie McKenzie, right? Does he not know what he's doing? Because I was told he was interviewing black coaches, but wasn't making that public knowledge. So now there's so many different questions left or right. So there were some questions that say Fritz Pollard Alliance, they were okay with the interviews that took place. Things just didn't seem too right. On ESPN, you had people congratulating John Gruden, and he's saying, oh, well, the ink is not dry on the contract. I haven't gone down for the interview, and that was a total sham. So is it valid to have the Raiders investigated right now? And the follow-up question for you is it time for the Rooney Rule to go away?
I don't think it's time for the Rooney Rule to go away, only because of the fact that it guarantees African Americans and other minorities a shot at an NFL job. Because as we learned over the years in the NFL or like other professional sports, it is a recycle factory of coaches. It's a fraternity, and unfortunately, a lot of the coaches or candidates are not African American. So I think the Rooney Rule is in place to do such a thing. Now, Reggie McKenzie, if that's the case, we didn't interview African American or made public knowledge, that is his mistake. And if they get penalized for it, they get penalized for it. You know the rules, especially if you're an African American GM. You should be the one person that follows the rules in this situation. Look, anybody knew who was interviewing for the Oakland job wasn't going to get it anyway. You go for the experience. They knew they had their eyes set on Gruden, and they have 100 million reasons why they're going to put their faith in Gruden. But you're right. I mean, the Rooney Rule should stay in place because a lot of times it could be that real hotshot coordinator that nobody's paying attention to that is a person of ethnicity that might not get the opportunity.
But tell me this much. It seems like people are going around the Rooney Rule. It's like, hey, I'm going to call this tight end coach from XYZ team just so I can have a phone conversation so I can check the box. I mean, because if that's the route that these owners are going, then I think the rule itself needs to be addressed.
Agreed. But my point is, though, but people do interviews over the phone. That's what the owners are going to say. Hey, we interview over the phone all the time. But you're correct. I think if that's the case and we're just getting simple phone calls in this situation, you have to really, like I said, investigate this rule and say, hey, listen, these guys have to have a face-to-face interview, at least one. Make this man come out and put a suit and tie on. You don't want him sitting in his living room eating oatmeal, watching his children play in the living room. To answer 3 questions, that's it.
Right. I just kind of go back, because the last time I had a problem with this, or this came up, I think I was interviewing Antoine Staley, and I asked him about the Rooney Rule. And, it's a touchy topic because, we're African Americans. And, of course, we want, if there's something in place, that's going to allow us to have that opportunity, yes. At the same time, you want who you want for your team or for your organization. Okay, That's number one. And I kind of go back to when Pete Carroll was hired by the Seattle Seahawks. And there was just so much back and forth. Is he being hired as a head coach or is he being hired as EVP? And Leslie Frazier was reached out to. And I think Leslie Frazier declined the interview. I think he did because he knew it was a sham. And then I think later in Pete Carroll's first season, he was given his EVP title. So you're kind of sitting there like the cat with the popcorn that we always talk about. You're standing there and you're like, okay, if you wanted to bring him in all along, then just do it. Don't make the rule look like a sham.
You're trying to bring somebody in. We're really not.
It's kind of like you're at work. There's an opportunity that's available. You have your buddy, and you're giving the interview, Danny, and you're kind of giving him the wink, in regards to, okay, so, you're going up against candidate X, Y, and Z. You already have it in. I don't know. I know we're dealing with billionaires and their hobbies or their toys, meaning their football organizations. I just think the rule itself needs to be really addressed, and it needs to be more than what it is right now. My next question for you is, earlier today, there was the announcement about the teams that will be participating in London.
Oh, yeah.
There's 2 teams that I want you to comment on. The 2 teams are, if you were a part of either the Oakland Raiders or the Jacksonville Jaguars, would you want to be a part of this London rotation? I mean, first, specifically, I want you to speak to the Oakland Raiders. They only have 2 years left in Oakland. That means at least 16 home games. You just given one up. And then last season, you gave one up to go to Mexico City. So, number 1, Oakland Raiders, and then number 2, Jacksonville Jaguars. What's your take on that?
Let's start with the Raiders. I think, you're in the process of getting ready to go to Las Vegas, but there's nothing more significant than starting, a tradition with the younger people over in Europe. People know the Raiders, and they're a household name wherever you go. People know about the silver and black. I hate giving up the home game, in London. I see what the NFL is trying to do because I think within the next 5 years, Ted, I think you might agree with me that London's going to get a Super Bowl very soon. I think when that stadium is finished, when Tottenham Spurs Stadium is finished outside of London, that is going to be the home for the Super Bowl. They're going to get one. And then once London gets that Super Bowl, the real question is the NFL going to give London an expansion team outside of that? Now, they did make some changes to the rule this year about London, but like I said, for the Raiders case, it's about global exposure. It's about global exposure and getting people wear silver and black out in London, England.
Okay.
Now,
I just want to jump in here and say I've attended the 3 Raiders games, not in the West Coast, not in the Black Hole. One in New York, one in Baltimore, and one in D.C. And I tell you, at each of those venues, I saw more silver and black than expected. So I think that the Raiders, along with the Dallas Cowboys and the Patriots, are already global teams.
And you can only imagine, Ted, the number of people that are going to travel to London, knowing they have literally 10 months to get ready for this. They're going to fly. It's going to be a silver and black stadium inside Tottenham. And I think Tottenham's colors are silver and black, to be honest with you.
So what's your take on the Jags? I mean, they've been like the poster child for London.
Yes, I know. And it hurts my heart that they're sending the Eagles game over to London. I'm thinking to myself when I'm at work today, I saw the Eagles, the game they chose. I'm like, of all the home games, you could have sent the Bengals game over there. You could have sent, the Titans game over there. I don't know. You could have sent the game against UCF over there. But don't send the Eagles. I actually wanted to see Carson Wentz and those guys in Philadelphia. Listen, in Jacksonville's case, is a little bit different. Shad Khan, he has his soccer team over in London. I think his team is Tottenham Spurs, actually. But he has the stake over in London. He's in the English Premier League. Of course, he lives over there. And this home game actually helps the Jaguars make a profit because the rest of their home games, if you look at pay attention to Everbank Field, Jacksonville has the lowest capacity in the NFL when it comes to stadiums because if you look at 3 or 4 sides of the stadium, there's tarp everywhere because the Jaguars have issues selling tickets. They've had issues selling tickets for years. So they put the tarp out to help with the blackout rule, and of course the blackout rule doesn't exist anymore. But at the end of the day, the Jaguars don't sell enough tickets to make revenue. So they said one game to London. That one game in London helps them get the revenue they need because, of course, you're selling out a 70,000-seat stadium. Everybody's buying merchandise, and guess what? You're not on American soil. So it makes everything perfect. So Shad knows what he's doing, and he's going to continue playing for London until either he's able to buy a team in London or they can put an expansion team out there. But I think the Jaguars will be there, for the next 5-6 years.
Just a follow-up question to that. So are you telling me the Jaguar Stadium is smaller than the stadium that the LA Chargers play in?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Saxonville's about 55,000 without the tarp on a sellout.
So they played really good football this year. You're telling me even with them playing good football, because I know you were there about 5-6 times this season covering them, there weren't any sellouts?
No. There are always player tickets available. Let's just say that. The game last week was the first time they've had the tarp taken off in years. I should tell you something.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm going in a totally different direction. There's a documentary that's out, and Brett Favre is involved in it. It's called Shocked. Short form documentary on the hidden issues in sports concussion injuries. And I'm sitting here shaking my head because I'm like, okay, Brett Favre, poster boy for the NFL, many, many years. has his Sirius XM NFL channel radio show, but you're speaking out against sports concussions. So I'm just perplexed a little bit because I know he was doing a lot of hits today with, Watch Stadium. That's a Sinclair broadcasting station, and he was on Rich Eisen, and he was doing his radio hits and TV hits all around. And I'm sitting here saying, is this kind of an oxymoron? Because you kind of had to know what you're getting into, and playing in the league for almost 20 years. I mean, I got to tell you, for one, my son plays, youth football, and I cringe as every time I see the kids have some type of helmet-to-helmet contact. So it's kind of like you know what you're dealing with, and you now have a short story out there about this. I mean, I'm not knocking them. I'm just like, which way is up? So do you have a take on that?
I think for me, when you look at those things, concussions are one of those things where you think about it, it's nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
Because right now, Ted, we're both parents.
Right.
You have a son that actually plays football.
Right.
And my stepson does not play football. His dad wants him to play football, but he's scared of getting hit. So you don't want to discourage parents from their kids playing football by telling the complete truth about concussions. We know, Ted, because we've looked at NFL players in the CTE situations, or even guys in the NBA that get concussions, or guys that get in the NHL, or or different sports that have concussions. The protocol is completely different. In the NFL, because guys are moving at the speed of light and just cracking each other at speeds that are just incredible. I mean, I think what the force impact sometimes is over 2,000 pounds. I think I saw that in Sports Science, where Ray Lewis was hitting people so hard, it's harder than a battering ram going through a front door that the police use. You're getting hit with that force on a regular basis, and guys are launching themselves like missiles. So guys are going to get hit with concussion. And who knows, that raw concussion can cause something dangerous. So I think in the battle of concussions and, and how concussions work, you have to hide some things, because you don't want to say, hey, Ted, Nemo, your son, has a grade 5 concussion, which is the highest grade scale possible.
Right.
You don't want to put concussions in scales, because the second you do that, what happens if you watch the game and Brett Favre gets a level 5 concussion, right, and they say it's catastrophic?
Right.
The NFL's biggest fear is one of these guys on this field dying of a concussion.
True.
If that happens, Ted, be honest with you, your son plays football. If you saw an NFL player die on the field due to the concussion, what is that going to do for you as a parent who can play football?
He's out of there. And that's it. I'm done. It's a wrap.
It's already scary enough to see these guys get carted off the field, and some of them don't even walk again. I still remember this day, Mike Utley. And I was just a kid when Mike Utley of the Detroit Lions went down. Ted, was it Thanksgiving?
I think it was.
National TV.
Mm-hmm.
He went down. The only thing he could do was thumbs up.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it like 4 or 5 weeks ago? Was it Tom Savage?
Oh, that was the scariest concussion I've watched in years, because here's the thing. Travis Kelce, the one Kelce caught last week, was a scary one too. But Tom Savage savagely went back out on the field with a concussion and finished the drive.
Yeah. I mean,
and the thing was, the Texans medical staff had to realize this guy was concussed. I think that entire staff should be fired.
I agree with you. I mean, I think of a few weeks ago, Blake Griffin.
Yeah. But Ted, that's completely different, though. You got to think about it. When a guy gets hit in the NBA with a concussion, that's one of those rare, oops moments because these guys are flying in the air. These guys, they're shooting jump shots. They're not getting hit by 300-pound linemen.
That's true.
Okay, so the NBA concussion is a little bit different. Now, for example, Aaron Gordon caught concussion with the elbow to the head. Those guys are going back and forth. I think that's AG's third concussion of his career. That's a little bit different. Not saying it's different, but when a guy gets hit in the NFL and you have a Tom Savage type injury, Ted, did you even see when Kelsey got his concussion last week?
I did.
Did you saw how ESPN just focused on his face?
Yep.
And all you saw was like he just got hit with a right hand from Mike Tyson in the 80s.
I just saw him standing up, melting. You kind of don't know what to do. And at the time, my son was in the next room, and I pulled him in the room to show him the play. And I said,
it was routine.
This is what happens.
And the thing, Ted, it was such a routine-looking play.
Right.
It wasn't like one of those guys, a headhunt against it. It wasn't like a guy was just – it wasn't. It's just something simple, but the speed and the impact. And that's scary when it comes to concussion. And Brett Favre is speaking out on it. Hey, listen, I mean, I guarantee you Favre's had concussions. They probably didn't even diagnose at the time because when he did it, it wasn't that big of an issue.
It's true. This is Late Night Parents. We're talking with Danny Thompson. Danny can be found on Twitter at NBADT29. He's all over covering NBA.
You name it.
UCF, the Jaguars, the
MLS.
You name it. You might even catch him at the Beyonce concert.
Hey, listen. If as long as me getting close to Miss Knowles Carter, I would drink her bathwater if I had to. But yeah, that's another story for another day.
So we come to the part of this discussion about the divisional round is here.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 games going on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it might be a rapid fire segment, but
let's do it.
Your thoughts on Atlanta and Philly?
All right, so for those who don't know me, I'm a diehard Falcons fan. So in this case, since I'm doing this as a sports writer, I'm going to take the hat off for a second. Atlanta is the favorite in this game against the Philadelphia team that, they were the best team in the NFL all season, but their MVP quarterback got hurt, and now they're dealing with Nick Foles as the backup. The good thing about Philadelphia is that Philadelphia is at home. They're the highest scoring offense and one of the better defenses in the NFL. But the one thing about Atlanta is that Atlanta's playing their best football of the entire season. Key stat in this game, Atlanta is 11-0 this year when they score 20 points or more. They're 0-6 when they score under 20 points. If the Falcons get to 20, it's the Lawler rule, like the NBA. Ralph Lawler for the LA Clippers. When the Lawler's Law always happens, when a team scores 100 first, they win. I think Lawler's Law is like 97% overall. When a team scores 100 points first, they're the first team to win. They're the team to win. If the Falcons get to 20, the Eagles go home on their home field. So for me, the Falcons' defense has been stepping up the last few weeks. Nick Foles is in a situation where he's uncomfortable in the playoffs. The Falcons showed last week when you don't have playoff experience, they will take advantage of it. The Rams only had 6 players on their team with playoff experience. Nick Foles has only played 1 playoff game as a starting quarterback. I'm taking the Falcons, and it's going to be a close one.
Next game is David against Goliath. Tennessee versus New England.
Well, good news for Titans fans is that Marcus Mariota was the first player in playoff history and also fantasy football playoff history to throw and receive a touchdown at the quarterback position in the same game. He's the only quarterback that I've ever seen to throw himself a touchdown pass in a playoff game. If you had him in your NFL.com or ESPN.com's NFL playoff fantasy, you scored double points with that touchdown pass. That's the best thing you're saying about this game. Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray are going against the New England Patriots. Tom Brady is ready to win the Super Bowl again. And the crazy thing is that they don't have all their weapons. Chris Hogan's still hurt. Brandon Cooks still hasn't found himself yet. Gronk is Gronk. Amendola is still figuring out situations with himself. New England always finds ways to win. I don't know if the Titans have enough offense to keep this game close. Mariota has to literally throw for over 300 yards with no interceptions to keep this game close. I like the Patriots to go to the AFC Championship game. I think it's 2 touchdowns.
And the honorable mention is DeMarco Murray is listed as out.
So I'm going to say 17 points now by New England. Thank you.
Next up, we have your Jacksonville Jaguars against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So it's Saxonville versus Blitzburg in the game that I think is going to be the most entertaining game in the entire divisional round. Here's the reason why. The Pittsburgh Steelers are now getting back Antonio Brown for this game. They have Martavis Bryant and Juju Smith-McCluster, which is probably, I think, the best receiving trio of the receivers left, the teams left in the playoffs. On the other side of the field, the Jacksonville Jaguars have 2 Pro Bowl starters at corner. The guy named Jalen Ramsey, who had the game-winning interception, and also the biggest trash talker in the NFL on one side, and of course, going back to my hometown team, the UCF Golden Knights, their former starting quarterback and former Houston Texans quarterback, A.J. Boye, is on the other side. So Ben Roethlisberger has to throw not against 1 Pro Bowler, but 2 Pro Bowls at corner. On top of that, Saxonville had 56 sacks this season. They played earlier this season, and Big Ben had his worst game of his career. I think he threw 5 picks in that game as Jacksonville blew them out 30-9. Now, mind you, Ben's not throwing 5 picks on Sunday, so let's not even make this an equation. But because Jacksonville can make pressure, Calais Campbell, Newberg, you have Dante Fowler. They have guys who can run. They have guys who can blitz. Pittsburgh has to get it together. I think the X factor for Pittsburgh in this game is Le'Veon Bell. If Bell can catch balls out of the backfield and control the running game, Bell is the most patient runner in the NFL. If they can wear the Jacksonville defense down, which possibly could happen, they have a great shot winning this game. Now, on the other side of the ball, Pittsburgh's defense is just as strong as Jacksonville's defense. But the problem is Jacksonville's offense is nowhere near Pittsburgh's offense. If Bortles gets pressured, Bortles makes mistakes. When you don't have a healthy Allen Hurns, your Marquise Lee has still been questionable, you don't have Allen Robinson, and you don't have much of a receiving game, you're going to have to hope that Ted's favorite fantasy player, Leonard Fournette, has the same type of game he has last time. This game is made for Leonard Fournette because it's a playoff game. He's ready to take the carries. If he gets 150-plus yards, the Jaguars should win because Bortles doesn't have to make decisions, make plays. If you're forcing Blake Bortles to make a decision, that's where it's going to be the problem. I've covered the Jags all year. I love this Jaguars team, but I think this comes to an end on Sunday. Pittsburgh is just too experienced on offense. They have too many weapons. I like Pittsburgh in a close game, but it wouldn't shock me if Jacksonville wins, but I'm taking the Steelers.
Follow-up question about Le'Veon Bell. If he's, in your mind, if he's hit with the franchise tag again, do you see him sitting out the season? Or do you see him saying goodbye, or what do you see for him?
I see him sitting out. Le'Veon Bell knows the risk of being a running back in the NFL. People say you just take your job and take the money, but listen, as an NFL player, it's all about guaranteed money. It's about the biggest pay possible. And the NFL is the only sport where guaranteed money is the most important thing because most of these contracts are front-loaded. As a running back, you take more pounding than any of the other offensive linemen. No one takes more of a pounding in a game than a running back. Le'Veon Bell is the best at what he does in the NFL because he catches the ball and he also runs the ball with tremendous patience. You got to pay the man. He doesn't want to play for a franchise tag. He is looking for long-term security for himself and his family. If you franchise him, be prepared for him to sit the regular season. I don't think he retires unless it gets too deep into the season because you don't want too much rush at his age. But I definitely see a complete holdout in him sitting the season if this thing is not resolved. So if they franchise him, I think he sits the season.
And the final game of this weekend, the Saints against the Vikings.
A game that was completely different than the last time the two teams met because New England, let's say this, New Orleans at the time, the first matchup, was still running Adrian Peterson, and Alvin Kamara was still trying to figure out his role. That's how long ago that first game was. Case Keenum is the most underrated quarterback in the entire NFL. this guy is still – they're still thinking about bringing up Teddy Bridgewater probably to start the playoff game if he could. Keenum's gotten this team to a great place, and like you say, he has a great defense behind him. On the other side, New Orleans has more weapons than anybody in the NFC right now. Not to mention behind having Kamara and Mark Ingram, who are both Pro Bowl running backs. They have Michael Thomas, who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL nobody even pays attention to. And they have a quarterback named, I guess his name Ted is Drew Brees, and they're experienced. That's the big thing. The Vikings haven't had enough guys to play in moments like this compared to experience. On the other side of the ball, the Vikings are at home, so I love Adam Thielen, who's also, Ted, my fantasy sleeper pick of the year because I had him in both my leagues that I won and got him after the 50th pick. So, Adam Thielen, if you listen, thank you very much. You helped my daughter's Disney dream come true. But in this game, Marshawn Lattimore will probably take the guarding of Stephon Diggs. So, in that case, I think Lattimore shuts down Diggs. If Keenan can find Kyle Rudolph and Thielen can make plays, it's going to come down to the running game with, Latavius Murray in that backfield against the Saints backfield. I think that we're going to have I'm taking round 3 for the NFC Championship game. I'm taking the Saints to upset Minnesota at home and ending the dream of the Vikings' chance to be the first team ever to play a Super Bowl on their home field. I'm taking the Saints.
Gotcha. Well, this is Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show. You go to latenightparents.com and you'll find our Facebook feed, our Twitter feed, the latest podcast, some of the latest and greatest blogs covering technology, product reviews, sports, education, technology. Danny, one thing I have not shared with you, but I will share with you, is I'm doing something that's going to happen on April 15th, 9 a.m. p.m. 9 a.m. ET. That's 13 weeks from now. I will be participating because I have registered for a 5K run.
Wow.
It's called the JFK Runway Run. I participated in it last year for the first time. I didn't run last year. I didn't run at all. It might have been a swift walk, but what I am doing now is I am training because I plan to make that 3.1 mile run. I got 13 weeks to do it. I'm pushing for a mile and a half. I'm not, if I wanted to promote it, I'd say, oh, yeah, I'm running the 3.1. I don't think I'm running the full 3.1 miles. But trying to do at least half of it, and it's for health and wellness, some things that we did last year on behalf of Dr. Michelle and her MS Family Practice. So I will be once again there this year. And I just wanted to share that on the podcast, also with you. And, I'm trying to do the right thing. It's snow now and it's cold weather now, but we'll be into spring before we know it.
So, Ted, is this one of these 5Ks that's a run-walk or is it just a complete run?
No, it's a run-walk.
Well, Ted, if you run it and walk the rest of it, that's the accomplishment by itself. I've known you for a very long time, and for you to do something like this, that 13-week turnaround is going to be an amazing process. I'm pretty sure you're going to write something about your process.
Yeah. I'm going to track it the full way, and I committed to it this week, and I'm just all in on it. I'm all in.
So that's why you started going to the gym. I got you now. That's why you started going to the gym.
That's why I started going to the gym in October.
I remember you telling me that. You said you were starting to go to the gym. I was like, I had to look at my phone to see who I was talking to. But Ted, like I said, for a cause like that, if I'm able to donate something, I would definitely, donate to the charity. And, I want to see you do it. You're my brother. I wanted to see you accomplish this goal. I don't think 1.5 is good enough for you. I think you should be able to make the 3-mile run.
And that's, like I said, that's the goal. So as we get closer, I will release, information for the bib numbers so that I can be tracked through the mobile app and all the above. And like I said, just pretty much excited about it because it's something new and something where you can kind of hang your hat on it and feel good about it.
Exactly. Now, Ted, as long as you'll pull the Benny Hinn version, I think Billy Hill. You remember that one where the guy took he did the marathon?
Yes.
He went to the first turn and then went in the taxi cab and then drove to the end. Yes.
Got the car service. No,
just don't put one of those numbers.
I think I'm going to have too many eyes on me. But along with that, dude, I got to thank you for
always
jumping on to do this podcast. Of course, it's going to air live on the home station WGBB, 12:40 a.m. and on Long Island, New York. But tell us the best ways to find you or your writings and things that you are doing.
You can always catch me, like Ted has mentioned before, on Twitter at NBADT29. Yes, the NBA, because I do write the NBA more than anything else. I am the lead writer of AroundTheAssociation.com. I do have a mock draft coming up this week, so for all you NBA fans who are looking to figure out where your team is going in the draft, for the lottery, I have that going on. I am the lead writer for Florida National News on the sports side of things, so that's my coverage of the Magic, Orlando City Soccer, men's and women's, the Pride, UCF. I cover the Jaguars and multitude of other things for that wonderful site. At the same time, I'm not a hard guy to find. Also, I do contribute to Late Night Parents from time to time. I did have a series starting up, and I'm going to go back in this month and add another article or two. It's called Life of a Parent from the Sports side of things. Ted, I think the first one was Cindy LaRue she's now a free agent now, but she did in Salt Lake City, but she's one of the top soccer players in the world. This month will actually be Dwayne Wade of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll get with him when they come back to town in February. And, I'm also contributing some other things for the site as well, too. But most importantly, Ted's an old dear friend of mine, and we do this, Ted, 3-4 times a week on the phone, just, chop it up. It's always been a pleasure.
Talking about life, talking about all the above.
Yeah, like I said, Ted's one of my dearest friends. He's like a brother to me. So always, Ted, anytime you need me, I'm not a hard person to find.
You got it. And I think that's a wrap. We'll see you next week. Thanks again, Danny.
My pleasure.